Coach JT here today. Campbell is out this week. She is on vacation and enjoying life. And Coach Larry is not with us today either. So I just want to ask a few of the questions that came up with Coach Angel Rodriguez, who was on the show on Monday. And let's get right into it. Okay, we are Chalk Talk. This is Chalk Talk Wednesday with Coach JT, our Q&A session. And the first coach that came in, this actually came in from. It looks like this is a recreational coach. She's a high school coach out of Alabama. And she said, how do I balance teaching fundamentals with keeping practice engaging and competitive for younger players? So this can be a challenge for a lot of coaches, and it was for me for a lot of years. And what you have to do is you got to learn how to work the fundamentals into fun drills. So everyday thing like the fundamentals of balance you can work into uh, walking on a beam or a 2x4 or something that you fasten. You can also use a bike or a skater or skateboard or a scooter. And what you just have to do is you when you set up your goals for practice, like what you want to achieve. So these are the things that we're working on. The reason we're working on those things is because we want to do this. And if you set those up, once you have those set, then you say, okay, are there some fun ways to teach these things? And if you've been coaching for a lot of years, then you probably have a lot of good ideas. But also YouTube or even this coaches community is a great resource. And you could go in there and you can figure out, okay, if we're working on timing, a great thing to do with your team, if you're working on timing for your hitters, is a game called trash ball. And one, it teaches you got to follow the rules of the game, right? Because the rules of that game are a little bit different than softball, or baseball. So you can do it with softball or baseball. What you do is you have the regular bases, you have a trash can or a bucket of some sort. It has to be big enough that a bat can stay in it. You have a kickball, and then you have two teams, right? So you got a team in the field and you got a team hitting. And you draw a circle around the mound. So whether you're softball or baseball, you draw a circle around the mound. And when you pitch, you have to throw the kickball in on one bounce. So it has to be one bounce in and you hit. So when you hit, as soon as you hit the ball, you have to put the bat in the trash can and then run. If you get a hit and you don't put the bat in the trash can or the trash can falls over, you're going to be out if they get the ball back to the circle before you get to base. The other thing is when you're running is, let's say you think you hit a double and they go out there and somebody fields it and you're not quite to second base and that ball comes into the circle, you're out. If there's a runner coming from second to home and you hit a single and that runner's trying to get to home and you get that ball into the circle, you get out. And I know I'm getting into the details of that trash ball game, but it's a great way to incorporate a lot of the fundamentals. One, you got to be thinking, what are the rules? Because they're different than normal. It gets them focused on that. And then strategy, like based on where the people are set up, where do I do it? And then timing with the bounce of the ball is great. Also follow through an extension, right? Because with a slightly deflated kickball, when you hit that with a bat, it doesn't have much forgiveness. So if you hit it well and you follow through, it'll fly far, right? But if you stop at contact, which is the problem I have with a lot of my softball players when they first come to me, then what happens is the ball ends up being a ground ball or just dribbling away from you because the ball will actually absorb all of the power, all the kinetic energy stored in that bat from the player's swing. And if they stop their swing right at contact, all that kinetic energy just quits right there. So you have to finish through the ball. So it's a great way to teach that. But the short answer, determine what you want to do. Say, these are the specific fundamentals we're working on in this practice. and then find some creative ways to um, bring that into your practice. And you will keep those young players engaged and having fun at the same time they're learning. A lot of times, if they don't know they're learning something, they learn it faster and easier because there isn't a resistance to it. If you're trying to teach somebody how to swing smooth, if you just keep saying swing smooth, smooth your swing out, if you've been coaching any amount of time, you know that's not going to work very well, right? Because they naturally form that resistance. All right. So next question. This one. Okay. So this is a coach who inherited a team from someone else, and she's asking, what's the best way to start building a team culture when I'm inheriting a group I didn't select? The first thing you got to do is establish where that team is and what their current culture is. So I would have a team meeting, and I would invite the parents, especially if this is a travel ball club or even a recreational club, or if you're a new coach going into a college, invite them in and kind of fill them out. Are there little cliques, right? Are there certain things they do? Are there certain everydays that they do? You got to kind of assess where they're at before you can start to establish your own culture, because you don't really know, and maybe you know a little bit of the coach you inherited the team from, or what that culture might have been based on knowing that coach or knowing where they're coming from. Or if you're taking over for a college program, you might be able to go through video and kind of see what that culture is. But the first thing I would say is assess. You got to know where they are now. And then I would say, okay, this is where I want to be with the culture, and this is what I want to do. And here's where they are. And even though that distance is far, I would formulate a way to say, okay, this is where we're going to be. And it's not like I'm trying to get there. This is our goal. None of that stuff. This is what we're going to do. Okay. Right now, I understand we're here. So there's going to be some learning challenges. We're going to have to give each other some grace. There's going to be a learning curve, but this is where we're going to be. Okay. So everything that we do, every drill, every practice, every meeting, every video session, everything has to do with building this. And so I'm going to ask you to hold me accountable, and I want you to hold each other accountable, and I'm going to hold you accountable to this, right? And I'm not saying this is a goal, because I feel like the goal thing is so overplayed and so overused. This is my goal. And it seems to be, it's not as powerful as it used to be. Maybe one day when you said, I got this goal, it was very strong. And some people, I think that could still be effective. But what I've noticed over the years is that goal word just doesn't have the strength and commitment that you need to actually get it. So instead of doing that, I always say, this is what our culture is going to be. And how long it takes for us to get here is depending on us as a whole buying into this and committing to it, right? So today we're going to commit to it, and we're going to hold each other accountable, and then we'll get here faster. And when we get here, the wins will come, but we got to get here. And this is our entire focus until we have that culture built. And part of it is a winning mentality, a confident mentality, and whatever other things you're intermixing in your culture. That's all part of culture. But you mix those in, and the wins on the field will show up if this is what you're focusing on doing, right? You'll get those wins, you'll get those team plays, you'll get buy-in by the players and all those things, because everybody's focused on this, and that removes a lot of the resistance from the different drills and things that you're doing on the field. And it can be a great way, and it's exciting that you're inheriting a team, and because you're doing that, it's a great experience, and it really helps reinforce your culture. And there might be a point in this where you say, you know what? I say I want this culture, but I do this. And now that I'm being held accountable, I know that and I need to change that. And it can be a great learning experience for you and for the kids. Hopefully that answers that question for you. All right, let's do this one. Oh, this follows right on the last one. So this is a Rebel Little League coach. So this is basically rec ball. Probably this isn't quite travel ball. Um, how do I create accountability without losing the player's trust or enjoyment of the game? This is an interesting question because I actually think that they're sort of the same thing. So the trust and the accountability. When you trust someone, you hold them accountable. When they trust you, they hold you accountable. And so it sort of works hand in hand. And I don't know that accountability ruins the enjoyment of the game. Now, maybe we need to clarify what accountability is, because if that's happening, it's not accountability that's happening, it's blaming, right? So this is what ruins the game, not the accountability part, but blaming. So if you're not teaching your athletes how to properly keep everybody accountable, and the first person they got to keep accountable is themselves, right? They got to keep themselves accountable. They got to keep their coach accountable. They got to keep their teammates accountable. And if you assign accountability partners, like we've talked about in previous sessions, they got to keep each other accountable. But I'm not saying blame, right? Because blame doesn't do anybody any good, right? It never solves any problems. It creates problems, right? And so if you're having issues, take a look at it. Are the players, or are you blaming people for not doing things, or blaming people for doing things that they're not supposed to? Or are different players doing that to each other? That's where you usually see the enjoyment coming out of the game, because it's a blame game and it's not an accountability game. The difference is when you're holding each other accountable, it's actually holding each other to, think about like holding each other to a higher standard. It's not necessarily saying, you know, hey, Jeff, how come you didn't do that workout? Or how come you didn't show up for this thing, or whatever, Oh, I didn't show up because I was sick, or I had a cough, or there was an accident, or my mom couldn't take me, right? So that's like a blame thing. Something else is causing me not to keep my commitments, right? So I'm not even holding myself accountable in that situation. And it works all those ways. And if I'm the player or the coach saying, hey, Jeff, you need to do your bullpen sessions, and the reason we're losing is you're not doing your bullpen sessions, or the reason you have high ERAs because you're not doing your bullpen sessions, or the reason why you're not pitching is because you're not doing your bullpen sessions. That's not holding somebody accountable. That's just blaming them, right? That's just blaming them for the results. And are those correlated? Sure. But blame doesn't help anybody. Like I said, it creates more problems than it solves. So the first thing I would look at, if you're having issues with the enjoyment coming out of the game because of accountability, is look at your definition of accountability. If it's holding each other to a higher standard, that's what really I believe accountability is. If it's blaming them for things they're doing or not doing, then you just got to switch that up. And that's where I would start. Hopefully that helps. And if you have any questions, just go in the chat underneath and ask. If I'm not being clear, it's easier a lot of times when I'm talking back and forth with Campbell or with Coach Larry, or even any of our guests that we've had on. So I'm sort of feel like I'm talking at you right now because I'm just answering these questions, and hopefully the answers are helping you. But if they're not, just put something in the chat or message or whatever platform you're seeing this on. Just reach out to us, and I'll be happy to clarify and even get on a call with you specifically and help you through that situation. But hopefully that answers that for you. Okay, this is a travel ball coach out of Michigan, and she says, "How do I manage parents that set boundaries while still keeping them engaged in a positive way?" I think all these questions seem to be related, right? They're sort of, this is awesome seeing how they're naturally building on each other here. So, um, the first thing you want to do when you have a travel ball team and you come in and you got new players or new parents or whatever is you sit them down and you say, here's the expectations. And I always do a player contract, right? The players sign a contract that says they're going to be at practice, they're going to be at games. It tells them how much time in advance they have to give us before they don't come. And it's the same for the parents. The parents have to understand that in order for us to run this operation and this team and this organization in a way that is effective at developing the kids into wonderful adults who contribute to society, you have to have these accountabilities and these guidelines and these things that hold these parents in there. And if you set those expectations up front at the very beginning, and you're talking about holding a higher standard, then it becomes not much of a problem. And occasionally you'll have a situation with a parent and you say, hey, and if you set rules, I'm trying to think who this was, but there was a coach at college. I think he's at a college in it might even be Nate Forsyth at Ellsworth. He might be the coach who told this to me. But what he does is with parents, he just says, during the game, I'm coaching, right? If you have issues with that game, there's a 24-hour rule. You got to reach out to me via text, phone call, or email after you've waited 24 hours. And if you set something, it doesn't have to be 24 hours, but don't be afraid to do that. Because if you're having challenges with somebody who's heated, it's usually not because they have challenges with you. They're actually emotionally involved in the game, in the situation, and they can't separate themselves from that. So you can actually do that for them by pre-setting those boundaries that say, hey, if you got issues with the game, playing time, any of that stuff, you need to wait 24 hours before you contact me. And at that time, we'll have that discussion all you want. And by then, usually the situation is diffused and they're emotionally detached from it. So there isn't as many issues. But bottom line, make sure you set those expectations at the very beginning. Because if you don't, and then you try to say, well, why are you acting like this? Or why are you doing this? It really doesn't work very well to try and backtrack and say, well, actually, these are how we do things. I know I never told you, but this is how we do things. This is how we want to do things. It becomes a very difficult conversation. So right up front, beginning of every season, that's something that I do. Even if I don't have any new parents, I say, these are the expectations. And if they're all the same parents, I'll use specific references and say, this happened here. And those are the kind of things we want to avoid by sticking to our commitments, holding ourselves to a higher standard. And it works. And it should take care of whatever issues you have. And I know I didn't address staying engaged in a positive way, but by doing these things and living up to those and holding each other accountable and to a higher standard and having these set boundaries, they're actually going to respect you more and stay more positively engaged because every parent wants that. They want to stay positively engaged with their child. That's why they're there. And sometimes they don't always know how, or that, like I said, they get emotionally attached to what's happening on the field or in the dugout or whatever the case may be. So it's not necessarily them doing that. It's those emotions, them not being able to separate from those emotions in the heat of the moment. And so it helps too as a coach to note that, okay, this is not really who this person is. It's just how they're reacting to the emotions of this situation right now. And that can help you with not just with dealing with them, but staying with that positive and strong relationship with that parent, even if they have occasionally some challenges. Okay, I think I got that for you. Okay, we're going to take one more question tonight, and then we'll be done. But like I said, if you want to expand on any of these, or you want to reach out and ask me to expand for you, go ahead and reach out directly to me through whatever platform you're watching this on. All right, last one tonight. What's one or two things I should absolutely prioritize in my first season as a head coach? Oh my gosh. I mean, we talked a lot about it tonight. Probably the first thing is, what do I want my organization to look like? I would start there. What do I want my organization to look like? From my past experience, what culture do I like? What attitude do I like? What seems to motivate the teams that I've played with or coached under? Are there some things that some of my mentors did? And sorry, this is new head coach of a college, but what are some of the mentors? What are some of the things that my mentors did that I liked? And take that. And when you're first starting as a head coach, it's gonna end up being a reflection of your personality, right? And if there's something you don't like about your personality, a great way to actually improve that is to set a culture that you want, this really high commitment level that holds you to a higher standard. And you'll see those little things about your character start to change as you hold yourself accountable and your kids hold you accountable. And that's where I would start, is make sure that you have a very clear vision of what you want out of this team, this organization, this school, whatever you're the head coach of. It's very important that you have a clear vision of what you want it to look like. And then everything can build from there, because based on that vision, you'll set the culture, you'll set the attitude, you'll set the mission statement, you'll set the team slogan, you'll set the attitude, you'll set the expectations, you'll set the higher standard, if you will. And I know I keep repeating that, but it seems to be the theme of all these questions tonight. And when you do that, what you'll find is you'll know exactly what to do on day one. You'll know exactly what to do in week one. You know exactly what to do in month one, because you know exactly where you're going. It's sort of like the GPS in your car. If you get in your car and you say, I'm going to drive to, let's say you're in LA and you say, I'm going to drive to New York, and you're not using any GPS, you're just going to drive. You're just going to take roads and turn, and hopefully you get there. That could be a very long trip. You could go down roads that end or go the wrong way, detour way out of the way, and you don't really know along the route if you're actually making progress, because you have no way to track it. And that's what a vision does for you. It actually sets the GPS guidance system for your entire program and your culture and everything, and says, we're in LA, we're going to New York, and puts a little pin in it. And the stronger that vision is, and I like to think of it like a magnet, is that vision is a magnet. And the stronger and clearer that vision is, the bigger the magnet, the more powerful the pull, right? So if I'm going to LA to New York and it's just a little tiny vision, I'm just trying to be a little bit better. I've not got a lot of faith that I can really do much. We're just trying to win one game, we're just trying to be a little bit better on culture. If it's a little tiny vision like that, it's not going to have very powerful attraction for you. So it's going to be like driving a Fiat that maxes out at 45 miles an hour all the way across the country from LA to New York. Even though you're driving on the same road the Porsche is, you're probably going to take longer to get there, right? If you have a very big, clear vision of where you want to take the program or the team or organization, wherever it is you're working, what happens is this big magnet pulls you, and now you're in a jet. And it's like a straight line straight to your vision. And the people and the players and the coaches and the admins and everything's just sort of lines up to get you there faster, because of that massive vision and that strong clear vision. Doesn't necessarily have to start out really big, but it does have to be very clear. You have to be able to close your eyes and see exactly where you want your organization to be. And once you start there, you'll know exactly what to do with the little things when you're taking over as a head coach. You can build from there and say, okay, here's my big vision. What are the steps to get to that? What's the next step down, the next step down, the next step down, the next step down? Oh, okay. So week 1, I need to do this. And day 1, I need to do this. And whatever that is, but you can build down from that vision, and that'll ensure that you're on the shortest, fastest path to where you want to go, and tell you exactly what you need to do today to get started. Hopefully that helps. And that's 5 questions. I know I went through that pretty fast. It's a little bit faster when I'm just on here answering the questions myself. But if you have any questions, like I said, reach out if you need me to expand on any of these. But I think that's good for tonight. I think we hit up, those were the questions that I had for this evening. And I appreciate you guys being here. That's all we have tonight for Chalk Talk Wednesdays with the pack and Q&A. And we'll see you on Monday or in the community. Go ahead and feel free to drop a note or whatever you need, and let me know if you need me to expand, or if you have some additional questions. You don't have to wait for Chalk Talk Wednesday. Just throw your questions in there. There's somebody in that community that'll answer those questions for you, and who knows the answer to those questions, no matter what your questions are. I mean, with the depth of experience in the community, somebody, if it's not me or Coach Larry or Coach Campbell, somebody has the answer for you. So that's what this community is all about. Reach out to the back, ask your questions, get better, make a bigger impact on the kids you're coaching. That's what this is all about. Thanks, guys. We'll see you on Monday.